Hello guys, how's it going? Toofty here, and today we've got another episode of Toofty Thinks Far Too Much. Today I'll be thinking about custom stuff, in particular HUDs, custom UIs, view models, binds, and Interp settings. This is something that has come up a few times before in like the comment section and stuff like that. So to begin with, I'm just going to first of all answer the question, do I use any custom stuff? Then I'll kind of go through in a little bit more depth, why I do or don't for each example. So yeah, just to begin with, I don't use binds. I recently started using a script for my Interp settings. I don't use a custom HUD or a UI, and I just use the simple minimal view model that you can access in the settings. And my field of view is set to 90, I think. I can't remember actually. But yeah, it's slightly increased from the default. If that's all you wanted to know, you're sorted. Off you go. See you later. Thanks for watching. All the best. But I have some opinions I wanted to chat to you guys about, and I want to get your thoughts on about each of these topics, why some of them annoy me, and why I don't actually use custom kind of everything really. So let's go through in order, and we're going to start off with the overall UI, your view model, and their field of view. I kind of bunched them together, and then we'll talk about binds and we'll talk about Interp settings separately. So obviously it's subjective, just bear that in mind as a caveat for the entire episode. It's subjective. And also bear in mind that some of this is going to be less relevant now that custom HUDs aren't quite as much of a thing as they used to be. But my standpoint is that for a long time, I used to think that Valve's UI designers would do a far better job than anyone else who was attempting to create a custom UI or HUD. So I pretty much ignored them. But now I don't really believe that's so much the case. I think that's mainly just because of the fact that the game and the UI is 10 years old. So, they haven't really updated the UI. The actual visual style of it is very dated. There's a lot of embossed buttons, whereas nowadays we're kind of in the flat design era. So I think that there probably are some good custom UIs out there, but still, I don't use them. Why is that? I can't really be bothered. That sounds bad. It basically doesn't really bother me, and as a casual player, it's not important to me at all. The way I see it is maybe you'll make your gameplay, 1% more efficient with a custom HUD. So every 100 games or so, maybe I'll escape one death or kill one more person. Obviously this could matter to someone who plays professionally or competitively, but for someone like me who plays for fun, it really doesn't bother me. And you could say, well, you may as well just switch it anyway. But to be honest, I've never found one that's really been perfect for me, one I've really loved. I have tried a bunch in the past. Most were overly stylistic. They felt like they were trying to be cool. They seemed to solve some things, but they seemed to create other problems as well. I think with all of them, at least one thing annoyed me. Perhaps I could get used to them if I did try them for a bit longer. And without sounding too douchebaggy, I actually work in the field of UI and UX design, and if I see an amateur design, it does stand out to me like a sore thumb. And one thing I remember I didn't like as well was the health being in the middle of the screen. For me, I feel like I'm pretty aware of what my health's doing at all times. I'm not like, oh crap, am I on 8 or 7 health? I know it's roughly low, or I know it's roughly full or high or medium or what have you. So that wasn't important to me, and a lot of them do that. So it's just, again, personal preference and not being able to find one that's perfect for me and solves all the problems I have. I think my ideal scenario would be simply to add a couple more settings in the menu where you can simply switch the entire UI onto like minimal mode. Everything's laid out pretty much the same way, but there's just a lot less chrome, and what I mean by chrome is like visual styling, like embossed buttons, etc., and gloss and stuff like that. One thing I did want to briefly mention though, and this is going to be quite controversial, so get your trigger hats out. I get the impression that a lot of people use them just because it's kind of trendy, they're kind of cool, everyone else uses them, so I should too, sort of thing. I've noticed that the default HUD is practically frowned upon by some people, and so people just think they need to have a custom HUD because it's just what people do. So, they just grab one and they don't really put much thought into it, and does it make their game better? Who knows, as long as they're not using, heaven forbid, that they're using the default HUD. So yeah, I think I disagree with that. If you want to use the default HUD, whatever, it's like, it does the job. It's a little bit ugly here and there, it's a little bit clunky and old, but it's, it's perfectly fine to use. I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. Do you think a lot of people do just grab some custom HUD just because it's kind of cool? They see Uncle Dane or Muselk using one and go, oh, I want to use that as well. I don't know, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure some of you use them for very valid reasons. I don't want you to think that every single person who uses a custom HUD is just trying to be cool. Some of them are more pleasant on the eye, some of them may help you out personally, and I even bet that some of you actually quite enjoy, fiddling with the custom settings and making your game a really customized and personal experience. But for me, I really don't enjoy that kind of thing. I enjoy just jumping straight into the game and get fragging, alright? So yeah, could I get used to a custom HUD? Yes, I could. Would it make my experience better? Possibly marginally. But possibly marginally isn't a real motivator for me hunting out that perfect UI and changing it. So I'm cool with what I've got. It's not ideal, but it's perfectly fine for what I need it for. I have to say that once they introduced the minimal view model, that was a great improvement for me and I was really happy with that. Even this took me some getting used to be honest, so maybe I'm just really bad at getting used to it. I don't like change. Oh, change. So maybe there is an element of kind of me not knowing what I'm missing, because when the minimal view model came in, I was like, oh, this is a bit weird, but a day in, I loved it. So maybe the same thing would happen with changing my UI, but I've just not found one I've liked so far, and I have tried a few in the past. And a very quick note on field of view. I did use the default for a very long time until you guys kind of called me up on it in some of my earlier videos. I then changed it to a kind of a more reasonable, not too mental one. So I increased it slightly. I think it's at like 90 or something. I can't really remember. I just didn't want my view model and the gun and the hands looking too ridiculous. Some people just crank it up big time and it looks mental. And it's like, sure, you're saving 2 or 3 centimeters of screen, but you're also making the game look broken. And unless you're like playing super competitively, very important game, I just think it's a bit, I don't know, a bit try hard if you like. I don't like that phrase. A bit kind of, I can't think of a phrase. Trying to be really cool, and that's going to get some faces triggered, isn't it? Blimey, I like to be controversial. Anyway, let's move on to the next one, which is binds. Okay, so in casual mode, you mainly see binds being used for Lenny faces or perhaps get wrecked. That was, very useful to let people know that you've been wrecked once you've killed them. That's definitely not frustrating at all. But I think binds in terms of just writing something in chat can be useful in comp for like Uber is ready. That makes a lot of sense. You could even use that in casual as well, really, if you're really eager. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about kind of actually using binds for loadouts or particular weapon functions. For example, you could have a bind to switch to a different loadout, so you could do it really quickly, or have a bind to build a sentry gun or something like that. I think these are particularly interesting for the NG, and I do play NG a lot, but even with the NG, I still can't really be bothered. And I'm coming across really bad. I'm sorry about that. Maybe I'm just lazy, but really all you're going to be doing is saving an additional couple of seconds. And again, like I said, I mainly play casual. Those couple of seconds don't matter too much for me. A good example of how much it doesn't matter is that I don't even kind of bother switching to the Jag while I'm setting up my sentry gun, which would get you set up a little bit quicker, and then going back and switching to my normal wrench. And that kind of goes for all classes, really. I don't really have several loadouts for most classes, with the exception of NG, where I have, NG and then I have mini sentry NG. And I kind of started doing it with demo as well. I've got like the sticky jumping demo, which is a lot of fun to play with. But for every other class, it's really just, what do I use the most, And this kind of touches upon another topic I want to talk about, which is weapons that are only marginally different. The fact that if they're just a tiny bit different, I'm not going to bother with them too much. But anyway, I'll leave that for another day. But yeah, in conclusion, basically, I don't use binds. And to be honest, I think the majority of people wouldn't actually use binds in most situations either. So nothing too controversial there. But finally, let's talk about Interp settings. So the fact that I even know what this is annoys me. And let me explain exactly what I mean by that. As the end user of a product, the game, I shouldn't have to be fiddling about with the console with weird technical settings to make my game better. It's madness, alright? Let me just start from the beginning. So I didn't know about this for a long time. Like I said, I was in my casual bubble. It's only really when I started watching other people on YouTube that I learned about it. And actually some people commented on my videos about he's not using the correct Interp settings and therefore it looks really laggy. So yeah, kind of recently I added a script so that when I launched TF2, it automatically changes my Interp settings. I'm not going to go into what exactly that means. It's basically when you see projectiles coming out of your weapons on your screen, it's related to that, and I don't want to talk about it too much. One, because I'm not confident about it, and two, because other videos have talked about it, so maybe read up on it before you continue watching this. But anyway, yeah, I'm not very technically minded. I'm more of the creative type. Sorting this stuff out just seems like hassle. I guess a lot of my viewers are going to be more technical minded, and they're going to think this is super simple. Obviously it's easy to do. What's the problem? But really, there's also going to be lots of viewers who haven't even heard of it, haven't switched it, and it's like, why should I have to write essentially code into the console to make my gaming experience better? Surely the game is built to be as good as it can be for the user. Now, I'm fully aware that I could be being naive about something here. As someone who's not very technically minded, I don't really know why we have to do that. I assume it's something to do with the fact that it's set at a medium level so that everyone gets the best experience. But then why is it even possible that individuals can go in and tweak that and get a slightly better experience? I don't know. I imagine it's complicated, so forgive me if I'm brushing over some very important details here. But yeah, this kind of goes for everything we talked about. The experience should be awesome, it should be the best it can be, and anything that is sufficiently subjective should simply be a switch in the settings or something you can tweak within the game. You should never have to go into the console. You should never have to download custom HUDs, although, you know, there's no harm in doing that, and it's kind of it's a nice touch, but why not have 2 or 3 HUDs actually in the settings, you know? Anyway, based on my experience, this is one that I think has made a significant difference to my gameplay. It's difficult to compare, you know, like exactly how much it improves my aim, but it feels like it has, especially with pipes, which is, to be honest, if you think about it, ridiculous. Why should certain people get an advantage, especially if those certain people are likely to be the most experienced people and are therefore the least in need for an advantage, if you see what I mean. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. So just to kind of recap, the overall UI, not found one I like, default one doesn't bother me. The view model and FOV, I use the minimal view model with a slightly increased FOV. Binds, can't be bothered with that, unless of course you play competitively or you're an annoying child and like to paste easy or get wrecked all over chat. And then finally, Interp settings, it just annoys me that's even a thing that exists that you have to tweak, but I have changed it and it has improved my gameplay. So yeah, today we basically learned that I'm lazy, and at least when it comes to kind of this stuff. But you know, gaming is my downtime. You know, I work full time. At the weekends when I'm not making videos, I don't want to be fiddling with settings. I want to go straight into the game and have some good times, right? Anyway, what are your thoughts, guys? Should it really be that the best possible experience is only obtained if you fiddle with like settings and the console? Do you guys use a custom HUD? Is it more just, you know, it feels kind of nice, it's kind of fun to customize my experience, or is it actually, you know what, I'm playing so much better because I changed my HUD? I'd love to hear what your experiences are. So anyway, yeah, I thought it was a really interesting topic to discuss. I hope I didn't trigger your faces off too much in this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.